until finally you're in these little narrow streets that are medieval streets. It's like your life consists of going cross town endlessly on 38th Street, which any 12-year-old kid can spit across. And so, another thing that was very evident in the medieval city, of course, was the aristocratic part of it too. The medieval cities were always complete with a small enclave of the ruling class, very, very isolated from the rest, living in elegant splendor, and protected by police night and day, which protected their world, and they lived in an enclave, very much like New York does, has this elegant Upper East Side, which is, by the way, patrolled usually by private patrolmen and private police, which protect them from the rest of the howling wilderness of the medieval city they live in. And so it's fascinating to see us developing these walls, where we're creating walls. Another side of the medieval city, it was a city in a country in itself. It was a country. In other words, the city-state, what I'm getting at. Yes. So if you were a Venetian, you were very different, say, from a Roman or a Milanese, and you often warred against them. How many newscasts have you heard recently where New York is philosophically declaring war on the rest of the country? Oh, constantly. And you travel around the rest of the country, you don't hear that. You don't hear great tirades on the TV or radio and say, we'll just take St. Paul, for example, how the rest of the country is out to sink St. Paul, and how the rest of the country is militated against Minneapolis. But we feel that way because of our medieval walls, our chauvinism, our inbred quality, our sense of danger, which comes from our own footpads, and so in the end, we, like several other cities in the world, and there are several others, we're not the only one, have resisted the 20th century. And ultimately, you know what happens to city-states? Well, it's a sad thing that at one time Venice was the center of the world in Italy, in that whole world. And it isolated itself so completely that ultimately it just drifted off, in a sense, philosophically, out to sea by itself, and now it's just a museum. Yep, that's right. And I think that all the vast movements of businesses from this city and people leaving the city and attitudes of particularly the young people are the ones that are leaving in great droves to go to places like Colorado, places their grandfathers would never consider going to, and their uncles and their cousins, their fathers would never even consider, just maybe a vacation, but just hurrying through. But today there are vast numbers that are fleeing the city, and this has very important connotations for the future. That ultimately, I suspect, our city, New York, I think it began already in the early 20th century to lose its power as the intellectual center of America. Let's face it, the number one art form of our time is the movies. Well, where are they? Well, that began the early 20th century, you say. Did you know that it began here? That's right. But it fled here quickly for a number of reasons, economic and otherwise. And so ultimately, our city is being slowly isolated from the mainstreams of what is going on. That's why in this town, old forms are still important. People still talk about harpsichord playing. People still get all excited over the publishing of a book of poems, for example, which is all part of another time, another literary time. And not that I'm against these things, I'm just saying that they're not part of the time much that we live in. And so as the rest of the country moves on, I think you'll find the city will become ultimately the way Venice was. I'm talking about in 100 years, of course. But ultimately, this city there are people still living in Venice, You understand that they go to work every morning in Venice too. But as a cultural force, Venice does not really have much clout. If you want to visit the past, you can visit Venice, and it's beautiful. I mean, I've been there. But if you decide you're going to open up a McDonald's, you're in trouble. It's just not part of the culture and the time. They're out of the past, really. Now, it sounds probably to you casually listening that I'm for, doing away with the past. It's not what I'm dealing with here. I'm saying here that there are certain physical things that ultimately become outmoded. One of the physical things that we've outmoded is the outhouse. People don't have them anymore. Okay? Certain things are outmoded, such as the gondola canoe to go to work in. We don't have that anymore. People simply don't go to work in New York in hansom carriages much anymore. And this is one of the few cities that still remains with working hansoms. I think that's significant. Our cabs, for example, are the dirtiest in the nation. No question about it. The cabs and the whole form of traumatic communication and transportation in the city is among the most medieval of all. And it's a fascinating thing to see. I think in 300 or 400 years, people will come as they come to Venice now, and they will write, romantic Mary McCarthy's of the future will write books called New York Visited in the Springtime. As a museum, there'll be pictures of these ancient buildings, and people will still live here. But I think that we are isolating ourselves with walls of tariffs, philosophical walls, and ultimately the city will, sadly enough, drift away because we will not give up the 19th century here in New York. We simply won't. Boss Tweed could get elected today. That's right. And probably has been in the last 4 or 5 years here in New York several times. And but New York is proud of it. You see, that's the thing that bothers me. New York is proud of the fact that it has little narrow streets that you can't drive on. Or anything. The trucks can't. Nothing can move. It's proud of this. It's preserving our heritage. Well, is our heritage dirt, crime? Is our heritage, you might say, emotional and communications and transportation constipation, which is what ultimately, by the way, that ultimately strangled the medieval city. It simply died because no one could move in it. It became a vast rabbit warren of quarreling people, and vast fires would sweep the medieval cities, and the great slums grew, incredible slums. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? And group was pitted against group in the medieval cities. Gangs were very, that the gang was created in the medieval city. I'm talking about the robber gang. Oh, yeah. Okay. And also another thing that began to trouble the people in the medieval city was a slow sense of strangulation and personal stifling. And I know many of my friends here in New York are beginning to slowly feel stifled in the city now. And they clutch at things to make them feel that they're out. That's why plants are selling like crazy in New York, to try to pretend somehow there is something green and growing. Pet stores have proliferated like crazy, but not so in Minneapolis. No.
Okay, trying to hunt down the microphone again. Follow my pants down again. Metaphorically speaking, of course. Here, looking for something here. No, it didn't upload. That's alright. I will upload it now. And there's something going on here. Oh, goodness. Hold on, gang. I'm trying to find something. If I can't get it on right away, I'll just save it for tomorrow. Oh, come on. It's just so complicated on these systems, I'll tell you. Here Here we go. How come? Oh, there it is. Alright. I'm going to give this about a minute to upload. Maybe a little bit. It doesn't upload quickly though. I will shut everything down. Here we go. Well, I'm going to play one Eurovision song tonight. And I'm going to leave it at that. Because like I said, it's an extra long show. Closed down 3 hours. So, this is from, wait a minute, I'm trying to find this. This is from Eurovision 2012. And, this is, there's 5 countries that are, they call them big 5 countries that contribute lots to the contest, financially and otherwise. And, let's see, France is one of them. And, this is the French entry for Eurovision 2012. And Gun, I believe she may be Miss Indonesian, and she sings this song is in both French and English, but mostly French. And I'll play the song, and that'll be it for the evening, or this morning at this point. Here we go. Hello. Oh, wait a second. Start this again. I had to fade something out on this one. Okay, here we go.
J'entends l'écho de ta voix s'éloigner de moi.